The Yamanote Line is a train line that runs in a loop around Tokyo. It moves millions of passengers each day through some of the busiest stations in the world, and it also takes part in a unique and fun aspect of Japanese culture. An eki-stampu, or station stamp, is a rubber stamp that can be found at train stations across Japan, and JR East, who operates the Yamanote Line, has these stamps at each station. There are a total of 30 Yamanote Line stations, and the loop can be run on the outer clockwise or inner anti-clockwise route. I set myself the challenge to collect all 30 eki-stamps on the Yamanote Line in one day, because that was all the time I had to do it on my recent trip to Japan. Along the Yamanote Line were some places I'd wanted to visit on my previous trip, but they were all alone and away from my other plans, so this time I planned to stop there along the way to break up the day. Before I get started, there are some key items that I need to take on this challenge with me. Firstly, you need something to stamp onto. On my last trip to Tokyo, I collected eki-stamps in a traveller's notebook passport insert. This time I used the special edition that can be found at the Narita Airport store. This is where I would test the stamp before committing to my main stamping notebook. Also, by a traveller's notebook, I chose the accordion insert as my canvas for this challenge. This insert features a cream card concertina style page, and I calculated the size of the stamps, the number of pages, and figured out that I could fit all 30 stamps in a kind of circle shape. Next is my plan. I spent time researching the locations of each stamp, which are found and shared by fellow stamp enthusiasts on a Japanese website, which I will link in the description. I also spent a lot of time in Google Street View on station platforms to try and figure out which part of the train would get me closest to the exit I needed. This pre-planning might seem like overkill, but I could not have done this in a day without it. I also copied and pasted the stamp images onto a table in the locations I wanted them on the accordion insert, so I could make sure that I didn't stamp in the wrong place on that sheet and mess the whole thing up. There was just one more thing that I need: the ticket. At the JRE station near my hotel, I went to the ticket machine to purchase the Tokyo Metropolitan District Pass, or Tokunai Pass. The ticket cost me 760 yen, which was about £4 at the time, and gave me unlimited trips on JR East trains within the specified area, which included the entire Yamanote Line. This ticket is available for anyone, locals and visitors alike, and I'd really recommend it if you're doing something like this. Generally at JR East stations, eki-stamps are located outside the ticket line, so I would have to leave through the ticket gates every time I stopped to collect a stamp. Train fares in Tokyo are determined by the train provider and distance, so using a Suica card to tap in and out of 30 stations would have added up to about 4,350 yen, so my little 760 yen ticket was amazing for this challenge. If you're riding the train like a normal person, the ticket price doesn't get anywhere near that high. For example, riding half the loop, about 15 stations, directly from Ikebukuro to Shimbashi would cost you about 210 yen. The cost of the pass was also fairly reasonable, that if I did happen to lose the ticket, I wouldn't be worried about having to buy another one. I started my day at Tokyo Station. My intended route was to take the outer, clockwise track, aiming to hit the busy stations of Shibuya, Shinjuku and Ikebukuro by lunchtime, as on a Sunday those areas get busier as the day goes on. I started the day at around 9:30 a.m. and I had sort of predicted that it would take about 8 hours, so the earlier you start, the better. I've already collected the Tokyo Station stamp on my last visit to Tokyo, so I knew exactly where it was, so this was a great way to start the challenge. It's located in one of the beautiful rotundas in the Marunouchi building. This is the south exit. And I wanted to give you a good look at what the stamping stands look like. There's a big poster with an image of the station stamp, and then there is the desk with the stamp pad and the stamp, which is usually chained to the table so it can't be stolen. The ink pads are a bit hit and miss. I found that Tokyo Station must have a brand new ink pad because it looked beautiful and it stamped really, really nicely. And here it is, my first stamp on the main notebook, the concertina style notebook that I'm putting my circle of stamps on. And always remember to close the lid of the ink pad for the next user so it doesn't dry out. The Yamanote Line links up a lot of major stations across Tokyo, including other connections to the Tokyo Metro and other JR lines, so it's always going to be busy. Where I could, I would take the escalator up just to save my legs, because I knew I was going to do a lot of steps this day. And here it comes, the iconic green Yamanote Line train. As you can see, lots of people getting off at Tokyo Station because you can get the Shinkansen, you can get other JR lines from here. And here we go, our first step onto the train, and we're off to the next station to keep collecting these stamps. I love going to Tokyo in December. This is the second time I've been in December because you get a lot of dry, sunny days, and it is just wonderful to look out the window on these above ground train routes with the sun blazing and the blue sky, and you can see all of the city. The wonderful autumn leaves were falling. And here we are already at the next station. The transit time between each station is between 1 to 3 minutes, so if you're doing this challenge, you will be standing up a lot. I would say even if it's only a 3-minute transit time, try and sit down if you can, just to, again, save your legs, because it's a really intense thing to do in one day. So here we are at Yurakucho, and this is where you would go if you're going to Ginza, and that's represented on the stamp with a little handbag. There's a cinema screen. Each stamp has an element of the name, the character name of the station, and sort of an image from what is surrounding the station. So that's one of the great reasons to be collecting these stamps too.
Your attention, please. The train bound for Shinagawa and Shibuya will soon arrive on track number 3. For your safety, please stand behind.
I made a note on my plan that between Yurakucho Station and Shimbashi Station I would be able to see a building that I wanted to visit. It's the Shizuoka Press and Broadcasting Centre. It's quite an iconic modernist building, and I would recommend having a look out the left-hand side of the train if you're travelling on the outer loop. After I collected the Shimbashi stamp, I actually also wanted to go out into the world to visit the Karasumori Shrine and collect the Goshuin. And I headed back to the station quite quickly after that. Here at Hamamatsucho Station, you can see there's 2 stamps and there are some pieces of paper. Both of the stamps are the exact same. It might just be that they get really busy with people collecting the stamps. And then the pieces of paper are also there, so if you don't have a notebook, you can collect them. They're not at every station, but it's always fun to collect them because sometimes they have extra characters on them, like station mascots, and it's a good way to test it before you put it into your main notebook. So here at Tamachi you can actually see from the platform the Shinkansen running by, but it was here that I discovered that there were train delays on the outer loop of the Yamanote Line because of a person on the track at Shibuya, which is on the complete opposite side of the loop. But along this section of the track, the Yamanote Line runs alongside the Keihin Tohoku Line, which is another JR line. So I thought I would keep carrying on down on my route, taking that train instead of the Yamanote Line trains, which were completely stopped in the station. Next was Takanawa Gateway, which is the newest station on the Yamanote Line. And there's a lot of building work going on around here, so there's still quite a lot of temporary hoarding, and so I don't think the stamp is always going to be in this place. so it's always good to ask if you can't find it. You'll notice that the colours change between each station, so there's a little variety in the stamp inks. Shinagawa is one of the big stations, and there's actually a huge ticket office which the stamp is sort of hiding in. I had to ask someone to help me find it, but it was here. And it was here at Shinagawa that I realised that the Yamanote Line was not going to be running for quite a while in the outer direction. So I decided to change my plans and go back in the other direction because the inner loop was working. So I was going to go from Shinagawa back up past Tokyo to Kanda station. Here at Kanda you can see one of the issues with collecting stamps is people using their own ink pads. You can see the sort of staining on the ink pad from someone using a purple ink pad. I would say please don't do it. Akihabara was next, and there were a few ink pads and all of them were dry. It's quite a busy station, as you can imagine. It's sort of the gateway to Electric Town. I tried all of them, as you can see. Okachimachi is one of my favourite station names to say, and it had a decent ink pad as well. Walking up and down through the stations is a lot of work, so I hit the vending machine for hot corn soup, which if you're in Japan in the winter, I would highly recommend. It's just such a nice little treat. So at Ueno Station, I had the completely wrong exit written down. So I went through here and I looked around and I could not see the stamp. So I've had to illustrate on a map. I had to walk all the way along to the complete opposite end of the station. So you have to actually head towards the central exit. So I went to the Iriya exit, but where you actually want to be is the central gate, which is here. And it is directly to the right as you leave the ticket gate. I was a bit flustered, so I didn't film the actual location of this stamp, but I got it, and it has a panda on it. This is a station name that I struggle to say, so I won't try it. Nippori is known for its cats, so there are some cute paw prints on the ground by the stamping desk. Here at Nippori was the first time I saw this spray bottle attached to the stamp. I assume it's for the ink pad if it dries out, and I did see it at a few other stations as I went on, but this one was so inky, it was great. Tabata? I love saying the names of some of these stations, it's so fun. And if you're a train fan, I'd really recommend riding at the front because you can see through the driver's cab and it is just so much fun. Komegome had a great ink pad, you can see it's such a rich print, I loved it. And here I had a planned stop, so there was a shrine nearby that I really wanted to visit, and this stamp shop is calling to me. And I had a little walk through the local neighbourhood to get to the Komegome Miyogi shrine. It's a lovely modern shrine known for cats, and I actually got to see the shrine cat after I collected my Goshuin, and here is the cat on the Goshuin as well. It's a little superstar, that cat, so fluffy. So I continued on my way to Sugamo Station, which has a lovely duck on the stamp. I really love that. So here at Otsuka Station, I got my 18th stamp, so 18 out of 30, we're doing really well. And number 19 at Ikebukuro. And here I wanted to take a stop as well, because I needed lunch. I was desperately hungry, so I stopped at Sunshine City for some lunch and to roll some gacha. I found it to be super busy, and I think if I had been able to follow my original plan, I would have arrived earlier and it would have been a bit more manageable. But I was motivated to keep going. The Yamanote Line trains have these wonderful digital displays which also have the names in English, and this is one of my favourites, Takadana no Baba, and here was someone else also using the stamp. Shin Okubo was madness. The amount of people trying to get into this tiny station entrance was crazy, so I'd really recommend you be patient here. Then we started hitting the really big stations. So here we have Shinjuku, which they also had a little extra piece of paper that you could stamp on. And I'm only realizing now that I did the stamp on the main page sideways. Oh well. It was starting to get dark because it's winter time, the sun is setting a lot earlier, but I was determined to keep going, and this is Yoyogi, which I had collected this stamp on my previous trip, so I knew exactly where it was. There is a mascot stamp here as well. This all seems like it's flying by so quickly, but it really was taking the whole day for me to do this. But it's really rewarding if you're doing something that you love. So although I was really tired and I really wanted to just sit down, I was determined to get to the end. And there were only 6 stations left to visit. Next is Harajuku. I'd also collected this one on my previous trip, so I knew exactly where it was. Since my last visit, the stamp at Shibuya had actually moved. There's lots of construction work going on at this station, so if you get lost, just ask someone, because I had trouble finding it here as well. And this one has the cute little Hachiko paw print on it. I was just trying to get through the next stations as quickly as possible, so I hit up Ebisu, Meguro, and Gotanda. And this was stamp number 29 out of 30. I was so excited to get the last stamp that when I left the ticket gate at Osaki, I actually walked all the way across the concourse and I just could not see where the stamp was. I was really confused, but when I looked back towards the ticket gate, I could see that these 2 women who had been talking to each other sort of obscured my view of the little stamp desk. So I ran over to it with relief to get my final stamp. And here it is, stamp number 30 at Osaki Station. And I was just so happy. It's also a really good ink pad. It was nice juicy ink pad. And here you do also have like a station mascot stamp, which I collected as well. It's a cute little bunny. And here we go, the last stamp on my concertina notebook insert to complete the circle. And I was really trying to be careful, and I still got ink where I didn't want to, but it was such a relief, and I did it all in one day. And so the challenge is completed. I wanted to take a final look at my completed circle of stamps. It's really, really something I'm proud of. And I did it all in one day, which is crazy. I can't believe it. I was exhausted and hungry, so I went to go and find some dinner and head back to my hotel. So I've now had a bit of time to reflect on the challenge, and I just want to talk through some of the things that went really well, some things that maybe I would change for next time, and just to enjoy having a look through all of the stamps. So in terms of planning, these 2 bits of paper really helped me on my day collecting these stamps. My plan, which I had printed out, you can see I ticked off as I went through all the stations, and I also made notes about the locations and sort of what worked well and what I maybe got wrong. And I did also film the location of each stamp as well as I could with the busy crowds on that day. So I'll have a video up with all of the locations and hopefully some decent footage for the whole Yamanote line, which will also be up on my channel. So if you are going to go to Tokyo, maybe you're not doing this challenge, maybe you are, you can refer to that video if you want to see where the stamps are. And then this little map of the stamps was amazing. I just sort of had it tucked into the pages of the notebook as I went along, and I would double check before I stamped on the concertina accordion insert that I was stamping in the right place. Stamping first in the little notebook was really helpful because I could see sort of how the ink was before I stamped, although there's not really much I can do about the kind of ink that is on the station stamp at that time. But these are all in order of where I did them, so you'll have seen that I had to turn back at Shinagawa and go to Kanda, so these are all in the order that I collected them, whereas I kept the main book in the loop that I had planned. So this was really, really helpful to make sure that I was stamping correctly. And actually, sometimes the stamp in this book is better than the one that I did the second time in this one, so I'm a little bit annoyed with that, but that's okay. And you will have seen as well that I did stamp on some of these sheets that were available at some stations. They're not available at all stations. Some of them do have sort of information on the back. And you can see that they have sometimes like a little mascot. So this is for Shinagawa, and yeah, these are handy to pick up as well and test out the stamp if you don't have a little notebook to do that beforehand. And then using this ticket, which I explained at the beginning, was super, super handy, and I didn't lose it. I only had one ticket, and yeah, I would really recommend using this if you are going in and out of stations quite a lot in one day. And don't use your Suica card. And then I actually didn't talk about this in the beginning, but I used this insert upside down because if you're using it like this, you can see that's upside down there, the paper actually only starts here, and I didn't want to stamp on the cover, whereas the other way around, the paper is stuck down to the back. So that gave me the exact number of pages that I needed to make my circle and get all of the stamps. And I'll put in a picture of the whole thing. I just can't fit it on the camera right now. But yeah, there's that one realization that the Shinjuku, is that Shinjuku? Yeah, stamp was sideways. But I think everything else is the right way up, and I'm very, very happy. Also, just to comment on sort of other things that happened during the day. The choice of the day, I didn't really have a choice in my itinerary, so I did it on a Sunday. I would recommend maybe not doing it on a Sunday. I think maybe sort of midweek after the rush hour and before the afternoon and evening rush hour might be a good time to do it. But on the Sunday, as you would have seen from the footage, the sort of busier stations on the west side of Tokyo, sort of Shinjuku, Shibuya, they were really, really busy in the afternoon. So if I'd been able to go around in my original plan, I think I would have hit those a bit earlier and maybe had an easier time, but that's just the luck of the draw. You never know how the service is going to be. Generally, trains in Japan, the service is really reliable, but you know, you never know if someone's going to unfortunately be on the track, and they had to suspend service on the outer track, which was the direction that I was going in. So, you know, I'm able to be flexible, and I just turned around and continued on in my journey. So I would highly recommend, if you want to do anything like this, that you just stay flexible and have a plan B. And also, I planned that maybe I wouldn't make it, because I would also not recommend doing it when you're jet lagged. So the Sunday that I did this challenge was my second full day in Tokyo. So I was still a bit jet lagged because I've come to Tokyo from the UK. So you're already trying to get over being really tired, and then you're doing like 15,000 steps, going up and down to train stations, moving through crowds. But like I said, I didn't have any other day that I could do it. So just choose your day carefully if you want to do a big eki-stamp collecting challenge. So I think having stops along the way planned is just really a great way to keep you on the challenge and to keep you motivated, and to sort of include those things in your itinerary which maybe you weren't able to add in on other days. So after all of that, do I still love the Yamanote Line? And the answer is yes. I even got this little Yamanote Line train in a gachapon, and I was so happy to get that little one there. It's a great system. I know a lot of people ask, like, should I stay in a hotel on the Yamanote Line when I'm in Tokyo? You absolutely do not need to. I stayed on a completely different JR line in Suidobashi, which is an area where I really like to stay. So it is a great circle line in the city. It connects a lot of things, but there are a lot of interconnected railways in Tokyo. So it's not essential to stay on the Yamanote Line. But you will find that you use it to sort of get from A to B, and maybe as part of other journeys, the Yamanote Line is a great line to travel on in Tokyo. So that's it from me. I'm really glad that I managed to complete this challenge while I was in Tokyo. And please check out my channel. Like I said, I'm going to have a video with all of the Yamanote Line eki-stamp locations as of December 2024 when I visited, if that helps you on your journey to find eki-stamps in Tokyo. And I also have a couple of other videos about collecting eki-stamps in Japan, and I will be doing a full run through of all of the stamps that I collected on this visit. So that's not just in Tokyo, but out in Kyoto and Okayama. So I'd love to know if you would do a challenge like this, whether it's on the Yamanote Line, or maybe there's another line in Tokyo or in Japan that you would love to collect all of the stamps on. And please do consider subscribing to my channel. I've got more videos about my travels in Japan, eki-stamps, and I love Japanese stationery, as you can tell. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye!